kingdom of heaven is at hand. Cure the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, drive out demons freely without charge.
Wow.
And he said, because I gave you this gift freely.
Wow.
I gave you so freely, you give it out. See, that's the problem people have in the world today. We have good gifts, but we want to charge people for everything we do, just like these prophets on the phone line, on TV. They'll come up and they'll say, oh, I can heal. God said you were being healed, but you got to send me $55 or $60. God doesn't come with the price. When Jesus was going about healing, he didn't charge nobody.
Come on now.
Jesus said, I do it freely. Freely I give, so freely you give.
Come on now.
God is an awesome God this morning. So he's saying it's time out. And then we get so caught up and we'll listen to those false prophets before we will a man of God or a woman of God.
Wow.
And God is saying this morning, it's time out for the mess. It's time to get real with him.
Come on now.
Then he says in the ninth verse, take no gold, nor silver, see what I'm saying, nor copper, money, and put no money in your belt. He said when you go into these places, you go in, and if that person receives you, and most of the time when you give people a word or you heal somebody, and you deliver somebody, God going to send somebody your way to help you. You're not going to be starving. You're not going to do without anything. He's going to make a way for you.
That's it.
And this is what God is saying this morning. It's time out for playing church.
Yeah.
It's time out. And he's saying when you go into these houses and people don't accept you, because we can't make anybody love us.
Tell the truth.
We can't make anybody change.
That's it.
So what we have to do is we have to shake the dust off our feet. This is what it says in the word. Shake the dust off your sandals and move on.
That's it.
And that means we don't waste time trying to pull people out of their mess, because in the end, people have to come to realization on their own. You have to get to that dry place that you are tired of being tired of.
Come on now.
And that's what God is saying this morning. It's time to come out.
Yes.
Then he goes on and he says, whoever will not receive and accept, he says, like I said, shake the dust off your feet. And he said in the 15th verse, truly I tell you, it shall be more tolerable on the day of judgment for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah than for that town. So all that, when people reject you, you ain't got to worry about fighting your battle. God said, I got it.
That's it.
He said, it's better for them to have received me than to reject me. Because when you reject me, you're not rejecting me, you're rejecting God.
That's it.
So God is saying it is time out. He's saying now it's time to go forth. Okay, my next step is in Ephesians, the 5th chapter. And he says, it's time, will you turn with me to Ephesians, the 4th chapter. And my second point is God saying, it's time to walk worthy of your calling. And when he says in the first verse, he says in the book of Ephesians, let me get to it. That's good. He said, Paul said, I therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you to walk worthy of your calling, which you were called. So God is telling us that we have to get up from where we are.
Yes.
And he's telling you to lead a life that's a good life. He's telling you to lead a life that's a holy life. Because we can't say God ordained us and called us out, and we're not living a life that's worthy.
All right.
And God is telling us this morning that I'm seeking you to live that life which I called you to.
Wow.
God is saying this morning it's time out.
Yes.
For us to keep playing and going around in circles like the Israelites went 40 years doing the same thing. He's saying you got to, your walk got to level up with your faith.
Come on now.
That's what God is telling us this morning. He's saying, and then with this walk, he said, with all lowliness in the second verse, and gentleness, with long suffering, bearing with one another in love. Just like you talked about this morning, we got to love.
Yeah.
We got to love genuinely. We got to love God and have that love on the inside of us. And God is telling us this morning, endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. And in the Amplified Bible, it says, living as becomes you with complete lowliness of mind, humility and meekness, unselfishness, gentleness, mildness, with patience, bearing with one another and making allowances because you love one another. Then he says in the third verse, be